This conversation is about the really tens, if not hundreds of millions of people who feel differently, who are pretty sure that the system has failed them, who are pretty sure that they've been over-medicated, wrongly medicated, under-medicated, overdiagnosed, wrongly diagnosed, underdiagnosed, overtreated, mistreated, poorly treated, whatever, by the system, however that describes. They're not getting the optimized life that they would dreamed of, and things are actually spiraling downward. That group understands what I'm saying here, and they're like, this dude is the coolest dude ever. And what's so interesting is I didn't learn this from the books, right? This isn't medical school stuff. This isn't journal.
Books aren't teaching this.
It's nothing to teach.
Yeah.
There's nothing to teach. This is just like, oh yeah, human. All the pleasure of food is actually in the anticipation. And when you eat it, the pleasure's over. Food is all about the smell, the tasting, the imagining, We put it in our mouth and we get that jolt, but then the pleasure's gone.
Which shows you, right, that it's an emotional connection.
Yeah.
It's something mental that's happening that you've gotten used to. That's what I really noticed with this most recent fast of mine is like the physicality wasn't really there for me. And I thought it had been all along.
Exactly. Being hungry is quite something, actually. What does hungry even mean?
Hey there, and welcome to the Reclamation Room. I'm Ashana, and I'm so glad you're here. This is a space for women reclaiming themselves after narcissistic abuse. If you've ever felt like you were too much, not enough, or both at the same time, you're in the right place. I created this podcast because I know what it's like to lose yourself in overgiving, overperforming, and still wondering why it never felt like love. I've walked through trauma, toxic relationships, and the long road of self-reclamation, and I'm here to walk with you. In this podcast, we'll explore what it means to come home to yourself after the confusion and chaos of narcissistic abuse. Some episodes will be solo, others will include guest interviews. All of them will be honest, grounded, and deeply compassionate. So, whether you're just realizing what you've lived through, or you've been on this path and you're ready for the next layer of your healing, you are welcome here. This is not about perfection. This is about reclamation.
So this is really cool. I honestly, when I come onto these calls, the chats are generally like very authentic and in the moment. And I saw you on LinkedIn and I was like, this guy is awesome. Like I need to have him on my show. So Dr. Fred Moss, I'm wondering, what's your philosophy here? What are you here to bring to the world, do you think?
Yeah, so I think what I'm here to bring to the world is something that the world already has, and I'm only shining a light on it. It's being rediscovered rather than invented. There's nothing that new about what I'm saying. In fact, there's nothing new at all about what I'm saying. And all I'm really suggesting after 46 years in the field of being a witness and a deep and real, in the belly of the beast, full-scale participant in the machine, is that the promise of the machine, the mental health machine in particular, is not realized. I mean, the machine does not help us cure. The machine does not help us heal. It doesn't even really pretend to do either of those things. It pretends to be something that can take away whatever uncomfortable symptom you have. And although it does that in a brief moment, it actually then induces, increases, perpetuates, or even causes the actual symptom it's marketed to deal with. So I've been able to see that because I've had this bird's eye view that I think is rather unique, as I've been in mental health since 1980. And in that time, especially in the first 9 years as a child care worker for adolescent boys in a state mental hospital, I've had an opportunity to really see how things have evolved. And, in 1980, I liked that job. I had dropped out of college a couple times already. And my mom was like, you got to get a job. And I was like, no. Moms will be like that. So we got a job at this civil service job. And at that point, for the first time in my life, I was actually communicating and getting paid for it. All I really wanted to do my whole life before that was learn how to communicate effectively. That's all I still really want to do. That's all. What else is there to do? I mean, it's like, that's what I want to do. I want to communicate. And that doesn't just mean speaking, although I've been a precocious speaker most of my life and have no problem taking the mic, and and there's no elementary school teacher who forgot having Fred as a student. And talking has always been a strong point, but that's not the same as communicating. So communicating is more than a two-way street. It's a multiple direction, and you have to get in between the words, what's not being said, what's the nonverbal, what's the unspoken, what's being said in the piece of art or music or dancing or singing or drama, any of the creative arts, visual or performing arts in particular. Those are forms of communication as well. So I just began to realize as I began to communicate with these kids that I could be very effective by communicating with others. I could be very effective in changing people's worlds by actually getting them. So as soon as these kids felt like I heard them, or as soon as I felt like they heard me, there's this resonating, high frequency, profound, extraordinary, powerful healing that takes place at that moment in the second of human connection, created by conversation and communication. So when we really get that and see that that's the healing force that we're all after anyways, and we start seeing how the advent of psychiatric diagnoses has really unfolded over time, because I was really on the front lines with each and every diagnosis that has been designed since 1980. We start seeing that these diagnoses are rather random, they're like nebulous, they're arbitrary, they're made up, they're manifested, they're not real, and they're really not real. But people want them. People definitely want them. That's why people come to a psychiatrist. Why do people come to a psychiatrist? They do not come to find out if something's wrong with them.
Yep.
They come to find out what's wrong with them.
Yes. Is it so, asking your opinion here, because I've thought about this. Do you feel that it's like the natural human inclination of like sense making? Like I'm experiencing something, it's uncomfortable. It may fit in with others, it may not. All I know is that right now it's painful. I may feel isolated. I'm going to go to someone who I perceive as an authority on what I'm going through, and I want them to make sense of it for me. And I want there to be a label, and I want to understand why and how.
Yeah, I think that that's part of it. I think that's that tends to be what people think that they're after. In my experience, however, it runs quite a bit deeper than that, because there's like thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of things that need to have sense added to it.
Mm-hmm.
You look around the world, you don't have very much sense about anything.
Yeah.
So why this one? Why is this one? And the reason this one is that when you have a label, when you have a diagnosis, when you have like a reason, when you can think, that then you're allowed to relinquish the parts of your life that you're not proud of, the parts of your life that you feel guilty or shameful about. Like, if I can say to my wife, the reason I yelled at you is because I have ADHD, or if I can say, that the reason I was late to my test or something is because I had ADHD, or maybe I had a bipolar run, I got semi-manic or something, or I started hearing voices and that's what told me to do it. And what it really does ultimately is it really relinquishes responsibility for life in the areas for which we're already bumbling and stumbling. What's really interesting about that is none of us really know how to live normal at all. We don't have a recipe book, we don't have a owner's manual, we don't have a template to learn how to live. So because we just don't even know what normal is. And so we have a lot of audacity to speak to the word abnormal when we don't even have a firm definition of the word normal. Like it really takes a lot. How is it you can call something not X when we don't even have a definition of X? And so that's really important as well. And we start looking at, well, what ended up happening and why I found myself looking at this question is that after 15 years, the only reason I didn't like that job as a childcare worker was because I hated the direction that psychiatry was going. I couldn't stand what I was seeing out of the field of psychiatry, and therefore I became one. And, the idea was that psychiatry was, was already separating itself from its clients. We would call the psychiatrist when Jimmy and Johnny got into a tussle or when Timmy was up too late. And he'd come down and he'd talk to Timmy for like 4 seconds. And then he'd talk to us for like 7 seconds. And he'd go into the nursing station with his pen and write something in Timmy and Tommy's like chart. And then our job would now be to go retrieve those children and hold them down on the floor while we pack them full of some syringe-based, sedative, hypnotic cocktail. And the problem with that people don't see, most people like you just shake their head like, ooh. What you don't realize about this is this has happened hundreds of times today already. I promise. It has
Not just to
It's not
children,
ancient.
not just
It's
to,
not ancient, and it's
yeah.
not, it's every day, and it's every hospital. And I didn't like that. I really thought that that was barbaric, and I was seeing things from already on the other side of the fence. I just simply didn't like it. I didn't see it as a safe place to be. I didn't see it that it was happily helping people get better. I didn't see any of that. I didn't like the direction, so that's why I chose to go in, because I knew that communicating and connecting, creating some harmony in a resonant way with these kids was creating curing. Like there was actually healing taking place. Like, wow. Like,
Yeah.
no kidding, their lives were changing such that these so-called diagnoses that they thought they had, they didn't even have, which is really fascinating. So in 2016, after 15 years or so of doing exactly that, of being a diagnostician and a pharmacologist, because that's what the industry wanted me to do, and then hiding behind, like, just trying to seep in some form of communication whenever I could get a chance. That got very old to live that duplicitous life. So in 2006, I decided that I would take people. I said 16, I believe I meant 6. 2006, I decided to take a group of my outpatients. I had 2,000 or so outpatients. So take a group of them off their medications, like totally, and see what would happen. I didn't believe that they were at their very best. They'd come in like tremulous and droopy. I'd ask them how they're doing. They'd say, "I'm doing good, doc." And then I would write patient doing good, or something. And I was like, nah, that actually, they're not,
Doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel resonant, I bet.
they're not as good as they could be.
Yeah.
What happens if we take them off these drugs? And so when I took them off the drugs, they got better, way better, like predictably better, reliably better, profoundly better, way better, to the point that their diagnosis really did slip away. Like they no longer had that which they thought they were needing the medicines to combat.
Yeah.
It's happened a couple hundred times. And so I was like, well, what's going on here is that the medicines are inducing, increasing, perpetuating, or causing these symptoms, and I need to say something. I was sort of had this urge to go to the top of a mountain and scream it out to everybody, like write articles, make sure, go door to door, tell people to stop feeding their kids meds. I'll tell doctors that we're not helping people. I wanted to do that, but that level of violence was not really acceptable. So I had to back off and get a little calmer and try to look at this from a way that was presentable and loving and caring. And so the more I backed out and really looked at the whole thing, the more I realized that it's not the medicines at all. The medicines are just things. I mean, it's like blaming the tiller for tilling your lawn or something, like blaming the lawnmower for cutting your grass. It's not the lawnmower that cut the grass. It really isn't, even though the lawnmower did do the cutting. We don't want
The tool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What really ended up happening is that why do people go to a doctor anyways? I mean, it's not medicine's fault. It's not Big Pharma's fault. I tried to call Big Pharma the other day, but I don't know their number. So, because they're not anything.
Right.
And the medical industry, I tried to call them too last week. Same problem. No phone number. Or like hospitals, I tried to call them. Nah, I couldn't.
It's like these things are all constructs and we keep them up with our belief system that they're going to work. So if it's not the medicine, so I'm wondering, I'm listening to you and I'm like, these people, your friends at this point, I mean, you've gotten to know these people, you care for them, they've gotten better. Do you believe that it was also that they were finally getting that connection and that understanding from you in the belief of, yes, you can do this?
Well, it's a little more than that. I think that the medicines actually block the capacity to make that happen. So that's a little bit of a problem as well. So yes, I do believe that they, in the process of being given the freedom and peace and power that comes from being heard, they were like, wow, I can do this. I can be a human. This guy's just a human just like me. When we start realizing that it's the lateral relationship, the eye-to-eye relationship, rather than the power gradient of doctor and patient, which can't be overcome. As a patient, you can't overcome the authority power gradient that's created in that setting, which therefore leaves you perpetuating in your condition and dependent on that doctor or that clinician or that counselor to, at the very least, be dependent on that person. And so the whole process, look, it's a great model. As far as like analyzing it from a business standpoint, It's like the most phenomenal model of any industry in the history of the planet. It's
And growing.
It's beautiful. It's so good. I wish I would have designed it. It has significant associated problems. See, what we think is that we think that once we have a diagnosis, we have a diagnosis. That's what we think.
Yeah.
And then, like, if I was to walk into your office, or you're walking, someone, maybe a friend of ours, walks into my office and he says, "Hey, doc, I have gray skin. It wrinkles too much. I have a really big nose. I eat way too many peanuts. I love water, and I'm a mess in a china shop." So he starts looking you up. He's like, "Okay, let me see what your diagnosis is." Bam, 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 boom, boom, boom. And he's got his little glasses, he's looking out over his book. He comes up and he gives you, he's like, "I found it, man. You're an elephant." And you're like, "That's so cool. That explains everything."
That makes so much sense.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
I now have a reason to understand all these odd things that I have going on. Well, when you walk out of that office proud and happy and relieved and reconciled and like knowledgeable and like now you at least know what the hell is causing your problem. When you walk out of that office, you get that you're naturally going to be looking for circuses and chains because you're an elephant. And that's what
you're going to fit in with more elephants.
That's what you know about elephants. You already came in. So now you're an elephant. And if someone asks you to go to the beach, you'd be like, "No, can't go to the beach. The elephants aren't allowed on the beach. I can't do that." So whatever you have going on gets affected by your preconceived notion of what that diagnosis really means or doesn't mean. Now, some people are like, "I don't really take my diagnosis seriously." Well, yes, you do. You take it serious enough to choose not to take it seriously. You have to care about it a lot to choose not to take it seriously. So when we start realizing that these diagnoses are essentially rather arbitrary, but not just arbitrary, the treatments are frequently designed before the diagnosis is even introduced. So we get a pill, we get a chemical that does something to our mindset, and then they design a diagnosis that might respond to that pill. But here's what it is. These medications are actually designed to do what I've already said, which is increase, induce, perpetuate or cause these symptoms.
Like they're designed
to
do that on purpose.
That's exactly how they're designed, 100%. And it's okay. It's okay because the industry is brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm not mad at the pills. I'm not even mad at the pharmacology companies.
I had a client recently who messaged in the chat, and she said, "I was experiencing more symptoms of anxiety, so I took a whole of my pill instead of a half, which is what I'm instructed to do when I'm experiencing more anxiety. I was so sick for the next week. I could barely function. I could barely go do anything. And I finally realized that it was the pill that was making me that way. And when I went back down to a half or even a quarter, I felt so much better. And today's the first clear day I've had."
Yeah. Yeah, and this whole idea of less, that's also a really funny thing, the additive nature of doses. People think that they should be weaning and going from 1 to a half to a quarter.
Right, yeah. Because it makes sense, right?
Well, it doesn't really make sense. It's not what was there 20 years ago. It now makes sense because we've been drilled that way, been programmed that way, but it didn't always make sense. And here's the point. Let's say it was rat poison. It was. You telling me that if I told you I have a 6-month weaning for you on rat poison, you'd be okay with that?
So it's simply if you take more, there's a higher chance that you'll experience more severe symptoms faster.
Well, it's
still doing the same.
I'm not sure. Here's what I know. What I know is there's only really one increment that really matters, and that's the increment from some to none.
Yeah.
Some to none. If you're still eating 3/4 of a teaspoon of rat poison,
you're still eating rat poison.
You're still eating rat poison. Let's say you were eating 2 tablespoons for a while, and now you're eating 3/4 of a tablespoon. You're still eating rat poison, and that's how these medicines are. But we're really under the assumption that as we go from 2 to 1 to a half to a quarter, that we're getting closer to zero. Actually, we're not getting closer to zero
because we're still dependent. Is that okay?
Zero is a zero. Zero isn't somewhere close to a quarter.
Where does the liver and the detox systems come into all of this?
Well, I'm sure that, look, we're able to somehow metabolize it enough. It does cause chemical imbalance in its own right.
Right.
That's its intention. It doesn't lie. It's hoping to imbalance you and to reverse the complementary way of whatever your apparent, completely fabricated notion of your own chemical balance is. Completely fabricated. Totally. No proof anywhere.
This is fascinating.
Yeah, there's no proof anywhere. It's completely fabricated. This idea that when you're uncomfortable, you have a chemical imbalance. That's just straight bullshit.
I wondered about that ever since I was little because my aunt would say, like, I have a chemical imbalance in my brain. And I'm like, but you're functioning in your brain, like all of our brains are essentially doing the same thing. So to me, it just felt like maybe she just had a hard time with like her anger. Like maybe someone didn't help you learn how to handle that. I don't know, but I was very young, so I could have been wrong.
Yeah. Well, we really have this idea that, look, we don't blame a log for burning in the fire.
Right.
A log doesn't have like a problem because it burns in the fire.
Someone had to put it in the fire.
We have a very challenging, hurdle-filled, obstacle-filled life that we're trying to negotiate. To be distracted or to be terrified or to be sad or to feel hopeless or to feel aimless or to feel nervous or to feel awkward or to feel, speechless or to feel like discombobulated.
Or unable to handle everything because there's so many things happening. Right? Like,
So many things happening. So to feel overwhelmed.
So overwhelming. Yeah.
So if you're overwhelmed, that's not anything wrong with you. That's not a chemical imbalance.
Yeah.
That's not. Jaddu Krishnamurti said, it is no sign of mental health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society.
Yeah.
Pretty brilliant. I really like that quote, and that's really what we're looking at here, is that this is a profoundly disturbing society that we're living in. And it's been that way, by the way, for thousands of years, but it still is. And maybe it's gotten a little bit more unique or intense, but maybe not.
We have a much shorter attention span now, I think.
Maybe we do. Whatever our problem is, whatever our unique, but there's always been massive amount of troubles and hurdles to get over just to live life. There's no period in time and no culture where they like, yeah, we got this.
Yeah, everything's great.
No, we don't. That hasn't occurred. So, when we really look at if we don't blame a log for burning in the fire. So we'll go back here. So I was just backing up to like the 2006 experience. And since it wasn't the pills and it wasn't big pharma, it wasn't the medical industry, it wasn't doctors, it wasn't hospitals, it wasn't insurance companies. What was it? How could I make a difference in this learning? And what's really here is that people are very certain that there's something wrong with them and they want it identified, they want to fix it. But what if thinking there's something wrong with you was 100% of a human experience and every single one of us thinks there's something wrong with us? What if that, in fact, is a great, actually, quality associated with what it means to be a normal human being? As a normal human being, there is a significant part of you that is sure that you're abnormal. Like that is a normal experience. Because you're indeed comparing your outsides to your insides, to your imagination of what is built around their outsides. So you can't really compare those two things. So you just start, wow, how come he's having such a good time? How come they're eating that food? How come they live over there? How come they have that car or that activity or that interest and I don't? Like, what am I missing? And so when we get if people would get over the idea that there's something wrong with them, I really did believe this. I still believe it. Of course, it's like the essence of Welcome to Humanity, which is my overarching brand, is that if people could give up on the idea that there's something wrong with them when they're uncomfortable, then we would make massive strides into the world of mental health. Because if there's nothing wrong with you and all you're doing is the very next thing you're doing, that's all you're doing is the very next thing you're doing, and you think it's a good idea, all things considered. That's just true. Every one of us is doing whatever the next thing is that we're doing, and we have considered, all things considered, We are doing that because we think it's the next best thing to do. That's just how we roll. And we forget that all of us are doing that, including him, including her, including them, including you, including your family, including your kids or your spouse, including everyone, is just doing what they think is the next best right thing to do. Maybe we can relinquish this idea that there's something wrong with us. And if we don't have a diagnosis, why then, if there's nothing wrong with us, then I guess there's no reason to go to a doctor. And if there's no reason to go to a doctor, then there's definitely no reason to clip on a diagnosis. And if there's no diagnosis being clipped on, well, then there won't be any treatment plan created. And if there's no treatment plan created, there won't be any medication regimen designed. And if there's no medication regimen design, then you won't get a prescription. You won't have to go to the pharmacy. You won't have to get a copay up and running. You won't have to get an authorization. You won't have to take your pills every morning on an empty stomach after breakfast. You won't have to do all that shit. You don't have to do any of that shit, as it turns out. What you really need to do is connect with another person. We already know that.
Yeah.
We already know that. That's why we're having this podcast, with the hopes, wishes, and dreams that you and I will connect. And if in fact we show ourselves as connecting in this podcast, we'll get lots of views. We'll get lots of people who really like what we're doing.
Because people want that, right?
That is what people, way more than they want 100 milligrams of sertraline.
Yeah.
Way more. And that's where cure comes from. That's where healing comes from. I've had the fortune of working in some pretty tough places, high, maximum security prisons like Salinas and Folsom and Pelican Bay, some pretty big time California prison. And some of the most profound work that I've done was in connecting with them, sort of like connecting with those kids in the childcare worker job, but with connecting with them or connecting with my inpatient clients, for which I've had over 10,000 inpatients, is that when I connect, there's like a Christmas tree that lights up. Like when I really get them and they get me, that smile that you just gave me it's what comes from them too. You want to know why? Because they're freaking human. That's why, because they're human. They got everything every other human has. They have a heart, they have a soul, they have a desire, they have a wish to be heard, they have a wish to be understood. They're absolutely interested in connecting if and when it would be available, as long as they can protect themselves from the broken heart that comes on the back end of a connection so often. Mm-hmm. Someone betrays you, or someone lies, or someone does something, or dies, or moves, and then we get a broken heart. And people don't pursue relationships because they're afraid of the outcome at the end. It's so pitiful, so pitiful. Like we don't know, I'm going to stay alone. Yeah. Not because I want to, but because I don't want to be screwed over again. Yeah. So that's a big cost that we pay. But in fact, when we're willing to understand that even if we're pretending to be someone we're not, in order to protect the people that we are, we're still going to be dismissed. We're still going to be disregarded. We're still going to be thrown off the island. We're still going to piss people off. We're still going to be hated. So it's not even a good strategy to try to be someone you're not in order to protect the person you are, because you're still coming. It doesn't really matter how you show up. And it's worse because now you're going through your life without being seen or without being heard, because you're pretending to be someone that
you feel misunderstood all of the time and you wonder why. That was me.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Misunderstood all the time, but it's really because you're not showing your real self. So of course you're misunderstood. So when we really get to finding our true voice, which is the name of my second book, Find Your True Voice, and the first book was called Creative 8. That's where the performing arts and the visual arts come from. When we finally find our true voice and we get close enough to resonating at the human frequency by moving away the cobwebs and moving away the rust and the dust and the mold and, and the dirt. When we get that all taken away and we're allowed then to, to really, really shine in our authentic self, then we actually get the frequency running that's going to allow us to connect to all other humans.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And especially the ones that will gravitate because you guys mesh and you can sharpen one another.
Exactly. Yeah. And in that's where joy, peace, happiness, power, freedom, and self-expression, apathy happens. It doesn't happen inside of diagnoses. It definitely doesn't happen inside of eating medication. It definitely doesn't even happen in a professional relationship with a therapist. It can in that situation, because it's possible that the therapist, although Most people are really looking for the therapist to kind of agree with them, be kind, agree with them. They got these problems, and a therapist says, yep, that's a big enough reason to have the problems you have. And now you're friends forever. Like if a therapist says, yep, that's a justified big enough reason to have all the problems you have, now you found someone who actually gets you. And you're really excited about that. But maybe that's not really where the requirement is. In other words, maybe each and every one of us can not only get help from another person when we connect, but more importantly, each and every one of us can learn how to connect to another person to help them. And that's very real and very possible. And that doesn't matter whether or not some doctor years ago gave you a diagnosis that you've been walking around with and eating medicine for, and pretty sure that you have your affliction or your defection or defectiveness or your syndrome or your mental illness that you are pretty sure you have. What if you could just let that go? What if, in fact, in your mindset, you could get, no, you're just another human bumbling, stumbling, and tumbling through this crazy world that's filled with obstacles and hurdles. And so is this other person who's talking to you. And that's really what's so. And if you connect, you get the pleasure of being with somebody and being grounded in your true and honest, real self. Now, two things I want to say about this. Number one, it's a disclaimer, a very important disclaimer. There's probably some listeners out here who are pretty excited about their meds, and they love their meds and love their therapy and love their treatment and love their diagnosis. They think it's the best thing that ever happened to them. Their whole life turned around on a dime, and they wouldn't trade it for the world right now. It's like everything to them.
Oh, they're probably pissed off at everything else you've said.
Here's the thing. It's completely okay. It's completely okay. They don't have to be angry. This is not for them. This is like, if you got something going on that has left you in that level of joy, dude, please keep doing it. No problem at all. I'm not telling you you're doing something wrong. In fact, if you've reached that area of some point of sheer excellence that you wouldn't trade away for the world in any area of life, you should keep doing what you're doing, because that is a rare experience that you wouldn't trade up even if a better thing evolved right in front of you. That is a rare experience. So if you've got that going on, good for you. Please doing it. This conversation is about the really tens, if not hundreds of millions of people who feel differently, who are pretty sure that the system has failed them, who are pretty sure that they've been over-medicated, wrongly medicated, under-medicated, overdiagnosed, wrongly diagnosed, underdiagnosed, overtreated, mistreated, poorly treated, whatever, by the system, however that describes. They're not getting the optimized life that they would dreamed of, and things are actually spiraling downward. That group understands what I'm saying here, and they're like, this dude is the coolest dude ever. And what's so interesting is I didn't learn this from the books, right? This isn't medical school stuff. This isn't journal.
Books aren't teaching this.
It's nothing to teach.
Yeah.
There's nothing to teach. This is just like, oh yeah, human. Oh yeah, that's what we are. We're human. Oh yeah. Even
because if this was in the books, then the whole system would collapse, right?
Well, it's interesting. I think the system is unlikely to collapse ever. And I don't think that it really would. However, I think that I'm not here to collapse the system. I don't have any interest in collapsing the system. What I have is I'm looking for some people who are interested in finding a new way to deal with their own discomfort. If we look at history a little bit, even going back to Buddha. So Buddha's a cool dude, right? Super cool dude. Like, we still think he's a cool dude. There's a lot of people who think he's like the coolest dude ever. And I get it. I think he's a pretty cool dude. I love the guy. I love everything that we still learn from the Dharma. I love so much of what he discovered. It's so great. And how did he do it? Well, myth has it, or story has it, that he sat under this tree until he figured all this shit out. Like, that's what he did. He just sat there still until he figured it out. And then when he was done, he decided, okay, it's time for me to go disseminate this into my community. Let's go. I think I got it figured out. Well, one of the things he had to do, if you really think about his decision tree at the time that he got up from that tree, is he had to realize there were still a couple things that he had not resolved. He made that very clear. There was a couple things that he had not resolved.
Okay.
One of them is that life is suffering. That's there all the way at the bottom of Buddha.
Yeah.
He worked out so many things. But life is misery is right at the start of it. And that we're really about attachment. We're really about attachment rather than like impermanence or something like this, which is really what life is about. So he got to the idea that impermanence was the thing, but he also got to the idea that us humans don't know how to absorb impermanence. And he got to the idea that misery was a thing. And that's why he got up, was so that he could assist other folks in miserable situations. So we can adjust our misery by changing our lifestyle. And what we do by changing our lifestyle, this is with the Moss method. So thank you for letting me buzz through all my items. So the Moss method is built, I compiled these things just like this philosophy I'm talking about. I didn't make up any of them, but I compiled 20 things that us humans can do to optimize our situation, to clear up the things that are in our way of being our pure and honest real self. Those things, no surprising to you, I'm sure, but first on the list for no good reason, it's not more important than the rest, is gratitude. And gratitude is like, waking up in the morning, first thing in the morning before your feet hit the ground. I mean, just put your hand on your heart and come up with 10 things out loud that you're grateful for in your life. With your hand on your heart, and say them. Like, say them. No kidding. So my wife sleeps with me on most nights, and there she is. And so she's always the first thing on my list because I might be waking her up. I don't want her to think that she's anything but first, And then I have these cats, and my cats always make it second. I have these 3 terrific felines that teach me how to live every day. Not down here in Newport Beach, though. We're down here for 3 weeks. So without the cats. So I miss them, but they're in my second one. And then, it's not hard. You go to the sun or the moon or the food or my mentor or my class or, my last patient or the fact that I have a job or that there's the sun or the moon, like I can really get into a lot of different things to be grateful for, let alone people or situation. Are there hundreds of reasons to be ungrateful? Oh, yeah. No problem. Like if you and I went on a mission to go find 100 reasons to be depressed, how long would it take us? Like
We wouldn't have to go very far.
4 minutes.
Yeah.
And how about 100 reasons to be anxious?
Oh, even more. Yeah.
4 minutes, maybe, if we took a break.
Yeah.
How about 100 reasons to be terrified?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, no problem. How about 100 reasons to be distracted? Yeah. How about 100 reasons to be awkward?
Oh gosh.
You see, there's no shortage of reasons.
Yeah.
But if you're going to choose to have a life that works, that's not the rabbit holes you want to go down. If you go down those rabbit holes, which are very real, they're very real. It's not a problem. They're not like acting like they're real. They're very real. And we are compelled at many times to go down these rabbit holes. There's something like compelling about looking down a deep, dark rabbit hole and then jumping in. I don't know why we do it, but we do.
It's like when you smell something that smells bad and you're like, oh, that's awful. Let me smell it again.
Yeah, let me smell it again. Exactly. And, so if we start looking at that, we can really start seeing that being our truest self and living a life that really works. On the back end of gratitude, for instance, there's this thing called Intro to Morning Sky, where you get out every day and just take a look at the infinite nature of sky and just get that, because we tend to think that we live inside, in between these 2 ears and in this cubicle, in this, 4 walls. But that isn't where life is really happening. So when we step out early and get a view of nature, not just an imagination of nature, like get out there for real. Yeah, feel the wind, exactly. Feel the rain, see the squirrels, let's go. And not just the natural things, like the whole thing. Just get out there and see the stars and see, I get up early enough sometimes to see the stars and see the moon. And in fact, even see drones. I see drones. I'm like, how is this going to be part of my natural experience? What the hell is this?
Grateful for the juxtaposition.
Exactly. I'm grateful for the opportunity to see life as it is. It's okay. I don't have to like drones. That's not what's so important. What's important is look, I get to live in this crazy multi-dimensional world and somehow continue to take another breath while I enjoy this temporary existence that is going to come to an end someday, whether that's around the corner next year or 40 years from now is really not even up to me in most situations. But can I live a high quality life between now and then? Because it seems like that's the real challenge that we're given by our Creator. How can we take into consideration everything, all the trials, all the tribulations, all the challenges in the world, and still, in fact, create a life that is high quality? How can we do that? What I need to tell your listeners is it's not going to come from a psychiatric diagnosis and a psychiatric medication regimen. It's just not. You can get what you can get, perhaps. So some people say, well, I was depressed, I was suicidal, I was a total mess, I was unacceptable, intolerable. and these medicines help me. And so do the diagnosis. Okay, I really do get that. I definitely get that. But what these people often don't know is what else got squandered, what else got smothered, what else got lost in that process. What are you no longer able to do that you don't even know you're not able to do?
Yeah.
There's things that you can't do anymore that you don't even know have moved off your plate because if we stop hearing certain things, let's say we got slowly hard of hearing. Do you get that we won't know what we're not hearing?
Mm-hmm.
We won't know what we're not hearing because we're not hearing it. It just isn't happening. And it's the same thing with our peripheral vision. If we all of a sudden we started getting more and more tunnel vision, we would not know what it is that we're missing. This is true in psychiatry as well. So these medicines often smother the symptom, for instance, and then, or the experience. I don't like using the word symptom, but they smother the experience, but they smother all other experiences like it too. And they're chemically created to cause the symptoms that are marketed to treat.
How did you figure that one out? Like, was this a scientific?
Once you get it, I don't know. I'm not sure what day it happened where I'm like, but no, here's what I got. When I started taking people off of medicine en masse, that's what happened is I saw, without medicine, these people get way better. With medicine, they look like the condition they thought they had. This is like, what other conclusion can I draw sensibly?
It's a closed loop system. It's that self-fulfilling prophecy. Yep.
Exactly. And so, look, is there someone in the laboratory who's actually making sure that the ingredient that causes the symptoms and marketed to treat is put into every capsule? I don't think so. That isn't what I'm saying. What I am saying is that I think that the medicines are chosen to treat the illnesses that they can perpetuate. I do think
there's some kind of there's got to be not placebo here, but like convincing, like you believe, I don't know. I feel like I could dig into this.
Yeah. To dig into. I mean, that's when you start looking at the elephant walking out of the doctor's office. He's an important character because he really is more than anything. He goes home and he says to his brothers, guess what? I went to the doctor today. I found out what's wrong with me. I'm so excited. And they're like, yeah, we've been wondering what's wrong with you. He says, I'm an elephant. And his brothers are like, dude, you're so not an elephant. What the hell? And you know what that person thinks about his brother now? He feels sorry for him for not knowing. It's not like he's going to be convinced by his brother that he's not an elephant. He's only going to feel sorry for his brother that his brother doesn't get the truth.
Or maybe there's something wrong with the brother.
There's exactly the next point. So the next is
now you need to go to the doctor.
Exactly. He needs to go to the doctor. Why? Because he's got genetic influence and might even have elephant himself. But if he doesn't even believe elephant is a thing, he's going to be a tragic deal here because he won't even try to get the help that this elephant kid now thinks that he has. And then there's other things that happen too. For instance, you go back to the doctor, he goes back to the doctor and he's like, next day he's like, or 2 weeks later, and he's like, yeah, things got better, but I'm confusing my family. And I noticed a couple other things. I have these big ears and I have this very cool memory, like a really great memory. So the doctor looks in his book, he goes, let me check. I think I'm excited about this. And he checks and he goes, oh, you got elephant type 2. It's a very rare breed. You're rare. I haven't seen this one in my whole career, maybe one time when I was just a young resident. Now,
do you part of this for the doctors is that I may be veering off track here. You might have to be like, Ashana, reel it in. But if I went to school and part of my identity was in learning these things and I was rooted in that, and I'm like, yes, now I'm excited that I'm getting to check off the list of what I learned in school and I'm a better doctor now. Do you think?
I think that there's a little part of that. I never saw one of those. In the lunchroom, there might be different variants of what people think are conditions that, guess what? I saw, childhood leprosy today. And you're like,
yeah,
super exciting. How cool. They get to check off the box of being around a childhood leper. And it's not, there is a little bit of that. But here, this is what I'm saying is that the doctors, there's no problem with them either. They're doing exactly what they were told to do. They're doing exactly what they're taught, and they're wonderful people. They can take care of my cats. They can live next door. They can they can be my friends. No problem. They're doing what they're doing. All the components of the system are doing what they're doing and think they're doing well. Every one of them has a
That's why it's called a system.
It's a beautiful system, and put all together, it's a system that creates literally, check this, multi-billions of dollars per day in profit margin. Profit margin alone.
Like I don't think we can even like comprehend the magnitude of that, you know?
It is so insane. Here's what I have to say. There's never been an industry in the history of planet Earth that has created that level of profit margin in the history of planet Earth. Never. None. There is none. Because what are we paying? We're paying $200 for a piece of plastic with some powder in it.
Yeah. But again, it speaks to like what we want and what we will pay for and it's kind of endearing, I think. Like,
well, in some ways, you're right. It's what we want, but we can see that when we take it, it doesn't make us better, but we keep taking it anyways, hoping for a different answer.
yeah.
And it's not the medication's problem. It's not the doctor's problem. It's not the hospital's problem. It's not Big Pharma's problem. It's not anyone's problem. There's nobody at your house every morning telling you to open up that bottle and eat one of those. You don't have to. You just don't have to. And I'm not suggesting for a second that I'm giving any kind of doctors, I have to be careful. I have to be really very careful, because people think, well, if I say that, I'm giving doctors advice and therefore liability on me. What the hell? First of all, I'm only saying something that's true.
And I don't know you, so I can't be your doctor.
Look, you don't have to take your medicine in the morning. That's not special. You don't have to brush your teeth in the morning. You don't even have to wake up in the morning. You don't have to eat breakfast in the morning. You don't have to do anything in the morning, or you can do lots of things in the morning, whatever you want to do. But you definitely don't have to take your medicine. That is completely up to you every single morning. There's nobody there with a gun to your head or threatening you about your family or something if you don't take your medicine. There's no one holding you down and opening up your throat and dropping this stuff in. That's not happening. It's your choice every single day, and you're taking it under the idea my doctor told me. Yeah. Who cares? Who cares? If your doctor would have told you to eat rat poison, would you have done that? Like, you just start looking at really what's really here. And if people could learn that, in my experience, more often than not, maybe not 100% of the time, that more often than not, these pills don't even offer a Band-Aid. They're not even a neutral thing. They're actually a Band-Aid with a razor blade embedded in the Band-Aid. Now imagine how that works. You got a little cut, you reach for a Band-Aid, you don't even know there's a razor blade in the Band-Aid. And then you put the Band-Aid on the cut, and it covers the cut. You're like, good, like it's not bleeding anymore. Super great. Then a few hours later, it starts oozing out the side of the Band-Aid. Right? Now
there's a numbing agency in there, right? Or agent in there. So like we think everything is fine. Like I don't feel the pain anymore until we open it up and we're like, oh my God, ow, oh, it hurts worse now.
Well, not even with opening it up. So I think it's making things worse. The Band-Aid itself is making things worse. You don't have to open up the Band-Aid to see the effects of the razor blade that's embedded in it. Your symptoms actually naturally get worse. So the very common second visit complaint in an office setting is, doctor, the medicines really helped. It's like,
really?
Yeah, it's very common second visit. Because they get the surge of this, okay, it helped. Like, okay, I'm smothered, or I'm blanketed. And then their condition gets worse, and it does get worse. And now all they're coming for, see, doctors only know how to answer that question with one of three answers: add, increase, and change. That's it. Who would think that the medicines actually made the person worse if it's not like a qualified, quote, side effect? So if they're saying they're shaking or something, the doctor won't have that. But if they're saying that their mood is worse, the doctor will not blame the medicine on making that happen, and will only do one of three things. It's how we're trained. We add a different medicine, we change the particular Band-Aid, or we increase the size of the Band-Aid. That's all we do. That's all we know. We don't know how to reduce or eliminate as a response to that. And when we start looking at a Band-Aid, with a razor blade embedded in it, now you start realizing that when you're agreeing to take medicines, that might be what's happening. You have no idea. People are more afraid to stop medicine than they are to start. How freaking absurd is that?
Personal story, my son was born with Hirschsprung's disease. So when his neural tube was forming, his colon formed physically, but the ganglion nerves didn't work. So he couldn't push anything out. And so he had to have surgery, had to have some of his colon removed. And they had told me that if he ever got a fever, if he ever went more than 24 hours without pooping, all these things, bring him back immediately because it could be enterocolitis and we need to get him on antibiotics. So my son stayed on antibiotics for 9 months straight and a laxative for 10 or 11 months straight. And they had me manually irrigating his colon twice a day. And it was getting worse and worse and worse until finally I stopped. I was like, he's never going to learn to use the bathroom if I'm constantly doing it for him. And it was terrifying. Terrifying. Like, oh my gosh. And there was the doctor's cut, the surgeon thought I was crazy. He's like, well, you need to bring him back immediately if anything happens because I don't condone this. Like, we've told you what you need to be doing. This kid has never been back to the doctor. Never, has never had to. But prior to that, he was getting Botox injections every few months. He was going back for surgery constantly. We lived at Children's Hospital and it was scary, but he's literally never had to go back, not one time.
Yeah, well, congratulations for that. And when you can relinquish the perpetuation of the system from your particular circumstances, you've made a very major stride. And it sounds like that's what you have with your son. So congratulations for giving that a try. That's sort of like what we were talking about in 2006, where it was like, oh, these treatments aren't really helping. And so let's stop and see what's happening.
And just see.
Let's just, yeah, exactly. Exactly. So that's this kind of gains you can make when you start realizing that your system is built with all the medicines and therapies that it needs to have. It's a magical unit. Your body, your mind, your soul, your personhood. It's an unbelievably resilient, healing organism. And, you know, for instance, I have this little cut on my nose here, and this thing has been in my way. It was pretty large earlier this week, and so it affected my podcasts and stuff like that. But, you know, by not touching it, by leaving it alone, but don't put any cream on, I don't do anything with it. Sure enough, every single day, it gets smaller and smaller. And now my skin is, it's like, watch yourself heal and realize that you've got way more magic than any kind of medication or any kind of treatment or any kind of therapy or any kind of diagnosis is going to give you. And when we start leaning on that from a personal standpoint, and the fact that more than anything, all healing emanates from the essence of a human connection. When we start getting that that's really what's so, then we start seeing this other piece, which is, I didn't learn this in a formal way. I learned this when I was 3, when I, you know, or maybe younger than that. Like, that's what people want. People want to be connected. So that's what makes this rather uncontroversial. It's non-controversial because we all know this to be true. It's what we do all day is we seek out people who are going to connect with us. That's just that's it. That's what humans do. So why not look to the source of where power, freedom, joy, pleasure, and self-expression actually emanate from? And that is from a human connection, and start realizing that when someone connects with you, even if you're in full misery, like full disarray, full chaos, when someone's able to hear you and you're able to hear them, that human connection creates healing on the spot, right then, right there, which often, by the way, can love. So when you have, like, you know, let's say you find your partner, well, all that partner is somebody who's able to connect with you better than other people. And so that connection is at the essence of love too. That connection is not a small thing, and it can happen online, but it's more than often than not happens when you're directly with someone. But if all you have is online, you know, we're not together, me and you, we're both staring at screens. You know, back in the day when I was just starting my residency, so like 1989, maybe 1989 or 1990. One of the criteria to put somebody into the hospital, like for real, like it was a hardcore criteria, was if they were talking to a TV. Now we put people in a hospital if they can't talk to a TV.
Yeah.
So you start looking at, well, that's all we're all doing now.
Yeah.
And if a diagnosis is that, if a diagnosis is like that fluid.
It's fluid, yeah.
So arbitrary.
Then it's all not real, right?
It's all not real. I've already said that. Of course it's not real. It's all not real.
Yeah.
Look, that's the Global Madness, which is another product. Thanks for letting me pipe that in too. The Global Madness was really built on the idea that if you have a diagnosis in St. Louis, a psychiatric diagnosis, and you take it to Reykjavik, you might not have a diagnosis anymore. If you take it to Tanzania, you might be given a place higher in the
Oh my gosh. Yeah. This is so true.
higher in the tribe. Or if you go to Japan, it might be considered normal. Or if you go to Singapore, it might be like you might have a diagnosis again, but a different one. Who knows? Yeah. It could all happen. So if all these things, all these diagnoses have multiple definitions depending on what country and culture you're in, then it's straight bullshit.
I never thought of it that way.
If you have a broken arm and you go to Singapore, you still have a broken arm. If you have a broken arm and you go to Reykjavik, you still have a broken arm. They won't give you a different diagnosis. That's a real diagnosis. You got a broken arm, you go to Tanzania, you got a broken arm. You got a psychiatric diagnosis, you move from St. Louis to Berkeley and you might not have a diagnosis anymore.
Yeah. Wow. This is important.
It's really important. It is really important. These diagnoses are straight arbitrary. And they mean a lot, because here's the other thing. People don't realize that every single time they go to a psychiatrist, 100% of the time, no matter when, 100% of the time, as long as they're using third-party payments, but also even when they're not, they get a diagnosis for that visit.
Mm-hmm.
And that stays in their chart.
And it follows you. Yeah.
It's there forever.
Yep.
It's not going anywhere. And we have to give you one on your first visit, or the ICD-9 code is a requirement in order for us to get paid. So we will give you a diagnosis, which, by the way, stays with you. And then 10 years down the road, or 5 years, or even 2 weeks down the road, you go for life insurance. Mm-hmm. That's going to affect your rating. If people know that you have been diagnosed with depressive disorder, even if you got it on one day, that will also affect your employability. That'll affect all sorts of things if they get back in there into your medical records, which are so private. Yeah, right. Right. Your medical records are private.
And there's so many implications here too. Like, one, I went to a doctor one time and told him a diagnosis that had been mentioned to me. He medicated me, and then come to find out later, joining the Navy, that's an actual diagnosis in my chart. And I'm like, wait a minute, I was just having a conversation with a doctor. Like, I didn't know that he actually said I had that, and it was there. So again, fluid.
It's still.
But when you're talking about connection with other humans and what you did with your patients, when you stopped the medication and they got better, their entire prognosis changed from what it had been from potentially another doctor, right? Like everything changed.
Everything changed. So yeah, when you get released from the system, everything changes. And that's the magic of the Moss method. What we're really talking about is undoctor reset. So as the undoctor, I undiagnose. That's the first thing, of course, that we've already gone over. Undiagnose, unmedicate, and then undoctrinate. So people do not have to come back into the mental health system when they feel uncomfortable ever again. It just doesn't happen that way. It's okay. You don't have to come into the system. And people can learn how to be that connector for other folks as well, so they can learn how to be undoctored. Because being an undoctor does not require an education or a license. All it requires is a heart and soul. All you really need to do is to walk with people and let them know that you don't think they're sick, or that maybe they're not. Or again, I got to be careful a little bit, but the idea is maybe these medications aren't doing them right. And they, you can do that from a heartfelt space, because a lot of times it's the outside people that watch people deteriorate. And there's a whole psyche here, because if you get worse, let's say you get worse, you go to a doctor, you get worse. You're under the impression that thank God you started medicine, because you would just imagine how much worse you would have got without medicine.
That one kills me.
You're pretty glad because you got worse, but hey, that's why I started this medicine, was to make sure I wouldn't get even worse.
Can you imagine if we could apply that logic to all the scientific studies we have that determine what gets FDA approved? Like, okay, well, cool. If we can see into the future, then.
Keep in mind about the FDA approval. FDA approves McDonald's as food. And when you start looking at that, you start seeing there's some nefarious bullshit going down there right there. I was looking at Egg McMuffins yesterday. I saw a billboard and I'm like, I'm on this 21-day fast. And I'm like, I could put together a couple Egg McMuffins, right? But it's not because it's good food. It's because it tastes good.
Yeah.
So the FDA, and look at the FDA, it's the same organization, the exact same, what do we call it? Like the same committee, the same council, like the same board, who follows the D as follows the F. Like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, it's food. And Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, it's drugs. And they approve whatever they approve, not based on the fact that these things are working. Let's make that very clear. It's not based on the fact that the food is good for you or that drugs are working. I promise. No way. You don't need to look very far on that one. The FDA is not there taking care of us to make sure like McDonald's is good for you or something.
Don't worry, we have you guys' backs. It's fine. We've researched it.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, this conversation has been, I feel like I could have you on for another one actually, if you would be interested.
Sure, we could definitely do it again.
Because I also, when I was naming my podcast, I was like, do I really want to put narcissistic abuse in there? And I'm like, no, I do, because those are the people who are going to come listen, because that's what we've learned. And that's what we've, we resonate with that. And I feel like I could have you on even to just talk about that, and
well, narcissism is also, it's a really, really interesting evolution over these same 50 years of what that word really means. So, back in the day, just narcissists, the whole mythology of narcissists, looking in the pond and all those things, seeing in the mirror and then falling in love with oneself or with one's image. It's as little as I recall about that. So, but narcissistic personality disorder was in cluster B. It was the middle one of cluster B in between borderline and antisocial. And it was a personality disorder. And it wasn't thought to be derogatory at all. It was actually thought to be an okay thing to have. Narcissistic traits are okay. They're really okay. And, because we all have to take care of ourselves first. That's why when the things come down from the airplane, like, put your mask on first so you can take care of your kid. But recently, in the last 5, 7, 10 years, this word narcissist has become a synonym for asshole, essentially.
It's blown up. It's really it's a buzzword.
It's not something you want to agree that you have.
Yeah.
And if you have it, if someone declares you, especially a spouse, oh my God, especially like an ex, if he was just a narcissist, he was like malignantly narcissist, he was so narcissist, whatever they say, it is not a compliment. It is not a form of a personality disorder even. It is a slug at your face calling you a sheer asshole and without you thinking that you are one. That's essentially what narcissism is these days. You're a deep, dark asshole and you have no idea that you're performing as such. That's what narcissism is. So now, again, that's a root title of your whole podcast. So I hope I'm not disrupting anything.
No. I wasn't sure I wanted to call it that, but I'm like, the people that I'm speaking to, they're going to resonate with this and they're going to be like, I'm going to go give that a listen. And a lot of these episodes are actually like debunking some things, reframing some things. So this is good. And if it's cool, I would love to have you back on to chat about it more.
Yeah, my pleasure. I would love to come on. It's a great interview. It'd be an honor and pleasure for sure. Let's do it.
I have your information, I believe, that you want included in the show notes, but did we not cover anything that you wanted to say?
Well, I think, again, the Undoctored Reset is really important. Undoctoredreset.com is where you find me there. But if you go to Dr. Fred, drfred360.com, that's where all my stuff is just like hunkered down in there. You can see everything I've ever done from that very slick, beautiful website called drfred360.com. The thing I often gloss over is this idea that the Moss method with its 20 compiled things. Also, it's like, why do I have a Moss method? Because people who think there's something wrong with them can't just stop their therapy and can't just stop their medicine because their only next answer is, what am I going to replace this with? How are you going to fix me if these aren't my tools? So if we really start looking at that, we see that what if there's really nothing wrong? If there's really nothing wrong with you, then we can optimize your life from a ground zero that had there being nothing wrong with you anyways, but you can get a higher quality life. You can create a less compromised lifestyle. And so another thing that seems like it might not fit in, but I'll bring in at this point, is that like getting in touch with how our finances work is also a major component. Like when so much of our depression and anxiety and fears are really based on our financial situation. Why didn't we get our dreams? Because we didn't have the money. Why do we not see our kids? Because we have to work. How about our spouse and our relationships? So they're toast. Why? Because I'm chasing down jobs. I'm now looking for my third job so I can make ends meet. there's so much money issues out there. So it's another thing I'm willing to help people with. I'm involved in this very cool organization that gives people their legacy back and gives them a true shot at generational wealth. But more than that, gives them an education of how money works and how to manage the money that they're making now. Even if it's $12 an hour, it's fine. And so that's another space that I can be contacted for. And we could talk about that in the future as well. But I think when, like, this whole comprehensive picture is who I've now become, and it seems like it's a little bit broad, I guess, to some people. They're like, you need to focus down. I'm like, I don't know how to focus down any more than I'm doing. This is all real. It's just it's what I'm left with. I don't want to carve out stuff that somehow doesn't fit on the album. It's like, put it on the freaking album. Find a way to put it on the album because it's part of the whole picture. Yeah.
Yep. And the people who need it they'll find it and it'll be there.
That's right.
Perfect. My gosh, I've loved this conversation. Thank you for sharing your time with me.
Beautiful. Thank you. It was a deep honor.
How long are you going on your juice fest?
Today. Orange juice today. This is the day plan. We just went to the farmer's market to get food. Orange juice all day today. Only orange juice and tea. I have some oolongs that I just bought, some peach oolong at the farmer's market. My wife just brought me my cup. And then, so it's orange juice all day today, and then half the day tomorrow, then a vegetable soup tomorrow night, and kitchery for Tuesday and Wednesday. Yum, 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 straight.
I'm excited for you.
We're doing good.
Well, congratulations, and thank you again. It's been great.
Thank you. It's been wonderful, Ashana. Really a pleasure.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for spending time in the Reclamation Room. Be sure to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if this supported you, consider sharing it or leaving a review. You're not alone, and your reclamation is sacred.